Another inspirational talk by Jensen Huang. This time he was at JP Morgan 24 in San Francisco, a fireside chat with one of his friends, some VC guy, doesn't matter. I will put the video in the show notes. He said something very interesting, and I want to relate that to our business and in general how we think about AI, how we think about the way the landscape is changing as far as industry is concerned, and in particular, of course, our positions, which are Tesla and NVIDIA at this point. So what Jensen said is he was sort of excited about the potential for biology. And he said, I remember back in the day, chip design was in the lab. And today, it's all in silico, which means it's virtually designed. And then once the prototype is ready, it gets taped out and produced in real. And he said we could have a similar development in pharmaceuticals or in biology in general, not just in pharmaceuticals. And I thought this is a very interesting angle, and that's sort of what inspires me about Jensen. He has the ability to see things from a very simple angle. He's one of those guys that loves and understands what he does. He's been around for a while, but that's not the point. He's not a typical chip CEO. He really understands the essence. You know, this is like Kant almost, the essence of things. And I think it's important to relate that to a broader audience, because when we can get caught in models, LLM and multimodal and blah blah blah, in reality it's very simple. We have a compression of reality that can be encoded and then decoded, and that helps a lot in doing stuff, whether it's programming, whether it's video conferencing, whether it's video gaming, whether it's drug design, whether it's car design, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's self-driving cars. In silico design can happen everywhere. And the analogy to the chip industry is, I think, a very useful way to think about it. This is not even on podcast. It's February 7, 2024. This is Krim Delco. For the day, we're up 1.3%. The market is up 30 basis points. For the year, we are down 19.6%. The market is up 3.8%. We're underperforming by 23.4%. The main underperformance comes from Tesla and has been driven by a relatively muted reaction to the earnings call, and then further shenanigans going on with the compensation of Elon Musk and things along those lines. And I think whether we've reached peak negativity here or not, that remains to be seen. But it's useful to think about, when we're in situations like this, when there's a massive, negative campaign going on with Tesla, then it is useful to think about what the company actually represents and how we expect to generate wealth by investing in this company. So the company represents a software-defined car. And software-defined car means that you can change a lot of things around the car with software. And you can also design the car with software, and you can drive it with software. So this is truly a software-defined car, along the lines of what Jensen said with what happened to the chip industry. Now, he used it as an analogy to pharmaceuticals because JP Morgan is the big pharma conference happening every year in San Francisco. But you can extrapolate from there. Okay, you can see the same thing. He actually mentioned Apple and Tesla as examples that have software-defined products that are just much better than anybody else in the competition. And what does it mean to have a software-defined product? So let's start with the chip industry. In the chip industry, when you design a product back in the day, you were in the lab. You were literally trying to put transistors together in certain ways, and then you were testing them out. I don't know exactly how they did it, but they did it in the lab. And today they're doing it in silico, which is they have simulations on the physics level. They use Maxwell's equations, so electronics design. Then they have the logic level, which is the gates. Then they have the actual chip level, so the function level, excuse me. So once you put all those gates together and you want to execute certain functions, you want to then see how the chip works as a whole. So when several functions get called and how that works, and then eventually you go into the system simulation, how multiple chips work together, how networking works, how memory management and things like that. So it's many levels of abstraction that are being used to simulate this chip. And I think in a similar way, we could see drug design being done in very similar ways. And he spoke about Moore's law and the necessity to not just drive Moore's law, but also manage data. And what that means is you have to have a data-driven approach towards your product and service, because that's the only way you're going to be able to take advantage of AI, if you have the right data that is streamed to your, whether it's Dojo or GPU cluster, and then you can train and iterate and so on and so forth. So this is what companies will probably look like in the future. And the leaders right now are in Silicon Valley, just because it's natural to them. It's second nature to be driven by data and have in silico design in the chip industry. But it's not as much second nature yet in the car industry. And Tesla is definitely driving that train very, very fast. And that's the good news. I think we are in for a product cycle that is driven by in silico design. And I want to expand that to the next gen vehicle, because I think what's going to be interesting about the next gen vehicle is not just the vehicle itself, but also the design of the vehicle and the production line. I think that's where probably some of Jensen's analogy also kicks in, that if you can design a car in silico and sort of be ready for tape out, and then have an almost perfect car and then produce it at scale, and you can have a faster, less error-prone production line, and B, you can iterate much faster. Those are the two things that I wanted to mention here in particular. In general, I think we're invested in Tesla because it's a software-driven car, a software-defined car. It's a new concept to build products. It allows faster iteration. It allows safer cars. It allows, just look at the example of the recent so-called recall, which is the wrong word for what it was. There were just some icons on the screen that NHTSA, the US traffic regulator, thought they were too small. Tesla should have increased them, and they did that through a software update. So you have a safer car, and you can have a car that drives itself, which is safer too. And then you can also have a production line that can be designed in silico and the car can be produced in silico, or at least a large portion of the production of the stack, or the production stack, can be done in silico. So this is kind of where we're going. Tesla talks about it, but is certainly not fully ready to deliver that message. And that's partly also because they probably are still with one foot in the sort of world of an industrial company. But their mentality and mindset is certainly software defined, and this is what matters. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, particularly when we're in this peak negativity or close to peak negativity right now, where we have fleet customers dropping Tesla, high repair costs apparently, things along those lines. It's interesting that rental car companies say they have high repair costs, but corporate customers don't have high repair costs. So there's something going on there, but that's for another episode. So to summarize, Jensen talks about in silico design of chips, relates that to the pharmaceutical industry, and we take that argument and go further and relate it to product industries such as the iPhone, and in particular Tesla. Tesla is a software-defined car, and the software-defined car can be produced in silico, designed in silico, updated in silico, and driven in silico, or at least the design of all these functions can be done in silico. And very similar to the chip, you can have different levels of abstraction. You can have the physics, and then you can have functionality, you can have system, you can have, in the self-driving car space, you have traffic, representation. And it all takes a very important mindset change, which is the one that you need to start with the data. What kind of data do I need to produce the next-gen vehicle more efficiently? How do I store that data? How do I represent that data? Do I use something like Snark or data lakes and tensor representations of data? You have to think like that, even if you're a production company. Because once you have a data-driven approach towards your business, that's when you can have an AI-driven approach towards your business. And that's when iteration can accelerate, cost can go down, and value can go up. Thank you.